Trying to use some community resources, knowledge, and that. See if we can get that maybe off the ground at some point in time. Had a really good conversation, appear to be on the same page. They got something kind of going on their own in there, so that's good. Could maybe connect, get some pieces of it or something. There'll be more to talk about on that one. We plan on staying in touch on both of these items moving into the future. Tuesday afternoon, attended the monthly board meeting of directors for County Mental Health. I did it via Zoom. I also did it at work. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. It's too hard to try to multitask. But anyway, we got a couple of different updates. Robin Cole, Chief Executive Officer, gave her report. We had a couple of different program reports on medical services, as well as the insurance risk report they come up with every year. Got an updated, got fully updated on the financial report, as well as the marketing development report from staff there as well. There's several other different committee reports, including review of the strategic plan, progress report that comes out every year for that. Some kind of an update on that plan that's going to be kind of moving forward between this year and 2025. The Finance Oversight Committee, which I'm also a part of, gave a review of the January 2023 financials, and other business included doing this year's mental health month proclamations. We're working on getting committees together to get the distribution for that. Keep in mind the annual celebration this year is April 25th at Clay Center. Once again, it coincides with our commissioners meeting out in Hayes. But anybody wants to attend that, please feel free to do that. We also have two new board members representing Gary County, and they'll be introduced a little bit better at the next meeting, which will be the annual celebration, as mentioned above. Wednesday afternoon, met with Blake Crawford with Channel 8 News from K-State. They're working on a story with the EMS station here. So we wanted to sit down and do a video interview and just ask some questions and get some background information on the subject. Thought it went pretty well. You said he'd get back with me, had any follow-up questions in regards to that. I guess lastly for me, today is the start of Major League Baseball. Don't have a whole lot of hope for the Royals this year, but I hope they surprise me. Have a lot of hope for my Atlanta Braves this year, so at least I'll have one team that'll make things interesting. So we'll just see how that goes throughout the year. So that's all I got.
Okay. Well, Monday I attended the intergovernmental luncheon in Rockland K's event space. Main presentation was by County Councilor Nancy Bowman. He updated the group on legislation being proposed by the legislation. There was a lot of discussion and questions, so there wasn't a whole lot of time left for attendees to update their activities. The next meeting will be on April 24th. Monday and Tuesday, attended some personal business and medical appointments. And I received a lot of calls concerning appointments to the Fairground Task Force. So I answered questions and talked to people on that. Wednesday, I was driving home from my veterinary office up by Ulster and witnessed the burn southwest of Tuttle Creek Dam. And I didn't know what was going on, but it looked pretty bad. And then coming into Manhattan, there were several fire trucks heading that way. So later I saw what was going on. So then later that afternoon, Wednesday, I had a meeting with several common table members to discuss possible move of the community meals to the 9th grade building. And apparently the project's been postponed again by the school district until maybe fall of 24. So all the work that we've been doing really isn't really going to happen for quite a while. And then yesterday evening, I attended Bellfire and written services at the church. So I have been having some work done in the yard, so I've been hanging around to make sure that gets done correctly. So that's it for me. So we need to move on to business.
No business items, commissioners. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes?
Okay. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the minutes written from the March 27th, 2023 meeting.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from March 27th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lieutenant Jim will go to commissioners. Any items for next week's press conference?
I have none.
Okay, we have a break and it's only 6:30. We didn't have any public comment.
Give us a chance to go there.
Yeah, now you have to read all about that bill. Just on the one bill, there's multiple bills. That's one. That should be one.
I have two.
Yeah, we did follow the agenda for those of you that don't know pretty closely, so the time is so people know when things are happening and can come in and the meeting.
It must have been a matter, I'm guessing, the first maybe 3 pages. I mean, that's what something that most of the sections did, and then as you go back through it, you'll just see the changes and references it did for the appraiser. I'm not saying that's the only advanced stuff.
First 3 pages.
The first 3 pages.
Roger, ready to go? Good. Did you have any public comments, Roger?
I want to address some.
Ready for you, Roger.
Okay.
Good
Good evening, Commissioner. I'd like to address you guys on the issue with the recreational tax that's being legal in northern Loudoun County. And I don't
Roger,
believe,
could you say your name?
oh, Roger Nelson. Okay, sorry about that.
Previous public works employee,
Yeah.
great employee,
Yeah.
won the snow rodeo many times for the public. This is Roger Nelson, I don't know. He's a great guy.
But anyway, you know, I live in Sweet Creek Township, and that's where a lot of this land is, and we're gonna lose a lot of revenue in this township. Because, he's trying to get away from the recreational tax and that. And there's hundreds and hundreds of acres up there that are not being used, and, I mean, there's not a stitch of fence on them, there hasn't been cattle in these pastures for 20 years. And we're gonna lose a lot of revenue. I don't like the idea of outsiders and buying real estate, but I can't stop that, and that's just the way it is. But with this ag plan going out and not being ag, we're losing opportunity for our youth up in that country to get a chance to start the farm. Because he's tying it up, putting in your recreational. If we don't get the tax involved, we're losing that money, but if our youth can get involved and get a place to start, we're gonna have revenue coming back into the county. There'll be opportunities for them to make money and stay in the county. As of now, with the land he's buying, we're gonna be losing a lot of our youth because there's no place for them. And granted, Sweet Creek Township, where I live in, we are an older, a lot of people up there, star operators are my age. And I'm gonna retire one of these days, but my children will take over my home. But I don't know if their children will ever get a chance to do it with these guys taking up this land, not this land. If they want to put it ag, that's fine. If they want to put things that rent it out to the locals up there and rent it out to somebody, I'm all in favor of that. But I do think we shouldn't let the recreational tax go up in this land. It's way too much, way too many acres. If it was a few acres, yeah, it would be that, but it's hundreds and hundreds of acres that he's not done buying. And it's just not Sweet Creek too, there's some in Grant too. And I don't know what, a lot of my neighbors are gonna be here tonight, they're on fire. They got called out on fire department, so they've been on fire all afternoon, so that's why they're not here. So lots of bottles, but then it's just granted. And That's about all I have. I mean, I'd be more than willing to take time to go up and show you the information, do a land view, and let your opinion, see if there's been a lot of cattle on the back.
Actually, that would be a bad idea.
Yeah. Could you give me a little background on, you know, the recreation fees and what is actually going on besides?
Well, the recreational tax is considerably higher than the ag tax.
Okay.
And he's appealed that he has stated that he has put livestock in these pastures and has the appraiser and has her convinced that he has put cattle in pastures. And supposedly there's supposed to be documentation signed by his leasers or renters that they have put cattle in it. And I have spoke with the guys that lease the land, and they said they have signed them. They have signed no documentation saying that they have put cattle on these acres. So either there's some falsified information going on, or these boys are telling you to get on the page. And I don't know, I'd like to see the documentation, and I haven't had time to go down and fill out paperwork, your open record act paperwork to see it. We've been keeping cattle, but for 11 months, but I call them this stuff this time of year, but I don't know if that's something the commission can request to look at, or if I need to go do that and present it to you.
Madam Chair, we do have a county appraiser with us this evening. Maybe she can elaborate and explain a little bit better.
I'm gonna come out.
Okay.
Yes. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Good evening. Regarding the lease agreements, it is public open records. You are welcome to come to the office, fill out the open records request form and see those documents. I have met with the property owner. We have the documents stating that they're paying or running cattle on some of it, but in the fact of getting the property ready to put the cattle on it, preparing for the agricultural use. With those lease agreements, I mean, I've talked to the state, there's no. We go the extra step to try to ensure we have documentation saying that there's actually ag in the works on these properties. We physically went out, myself and my deputy appraiser went out and inspected some of these properties. And you can see evidence on some of them clearly, where the cattle were, and others where they're working on the fences. I can't speak to the history on it, but what I can say as the appraiser is if I have a document, a lease agreement, listing the properties that are part of this agreement between the owner and the leasee, my hands are tied. When I go, if it was to go to the Board of Tax Appeals, they would say, well, you have a lease agreement. And so with the information I have, we made the decision that that was the route to go. We are doing everything we can to try to, like I said, physically go and look at these properties. We went up, we drove them again. And yeah, I mean, I can see that some of them clearly have been paid. Some of them you can see where the cattle were, you can see where some of the fence work is going on. And so we do what we can with what we have, what we know, what we're provided, statutorily, just to ensure we are appropriately listing the properties. You are welcome to come in the office and fill out that form, and I'll get you a copy of those. I'm not an attorney, whose signature is what and who's saying what. I know I talked to a couple different tenants on the phone during the appeal as well, when I had a couple questions, who also confirmed, yes, that property is actually part of it. It was missing from the paperwork. They signed an updated version. And so, I hear one side saying one thing, another side saying another thing. And when I have a document that says, yes, I have this lease agreement, then I have to, as the appraiser, I have to make that decision. So,
What portion of a tract of land do you qualify as being ag? If you've got a quarter section of real estate there, and a guy goes out there and mows off a little bit, gets 3 bailiff from that quarter acre, or
the whole parcel qualifies as the agricultural for all of our property owners. I mean, there's a lot of farm sites, when you're looking at it, there's adding a portion of it, and there's a huge treed area. We're not gonna go to a farmer who's adding part of it, and you may be hunting on the other portion and say, well, because you're hunting that, that's recreational. We don't divide that out, that whole parcel's counting as ag. And so, I mean, that's, you know, we have an excellent agricultural appraiser, she does a lot of our reviews and things like that, and she treats them all equitably. I know this property's been, these properties have been a bit of a problem historically. And so we're just gonna do everything we can as we move forward to make sure we have lease agreements, to make sure that we're verifying everything that we can, physically going out and looking at them, just to ensure that that's what's happening and kind of staying on top of it. Like, okay, where are we at with this? Providing the photo documentation, providing the lease agreements, and that's what I have to do in this role.
Well, I know for a fact that the office had before singled out land, because I do rent some land from some out-of-state people.
Okay,
And what I had farmed
okay,
and what I paid for them,
okay,
they got taxed back to agriculture, but the rest of the land they paid recreational tax on.
okay. And I
I
can't
know that's the way this
speak to that. I can't speak to that.
came.
Sure, and I'm not sure, but we can certainly take a look at that. I don't know of any particular land that's been broken out specifically as recreational, but I do know what you're referring to. In Riley County, I can't say for sure without talking to my appraisers to see if we have any of that currently existing. For the most part, as far as I know, it's ag, the whole part of ag, and so I can certainly check into that. I didn't bring my card with me, I apologize. My name is Anna, and you're welcome to come in the office and we can look at that.
Well, and I've also heard that there has been documentation taken on this plan, showing no fences, no cattle, and I've heard they've been dismissed and not used.
Well, the lease agreement in itself, though, as well, is a document. It's a legal agreement between the leaser and the leasee. I mean, the tenant and the owner. And so as far as if I was to go to the Board of Tax Appeals with this case, we would lose. They have that document. They can show everything that they've done. I mean, the pictures and everything in that appeal. I couldn't win it. We would, the amount of, I mean, it would be a case that we really wouldn't win. And I've talked to the state of Kansas to say, I've got these leases, I've got this going on. And they're like, well, with those leases, you would likely lose at the Board of Tax Appeals. And so, you know, I have to have some solid documentation to be able to say, yeah, this is not really happening the way they're presenting it to me to be happening, to be able to fight. And so I didn't have that at this point. And so without that, I felt like we had to make this decision with those leases. My hands are tied. You know, we can certainly, as we move forward, try to, it'll take a lot of manpower to try to stay more on top of it and going out taking pictures regularly. But I mean, it's a very hard battle. The ag land fight is a very challenging battle.
Well, I think we need to get some guidelines set in Riley County, what qualifies for sure, because this is not.
It's not a Riley County thing, though. This is state of Kansas thing. I can tell you in the two counties, I don't know about recreation.
I hope landowners, since we're so close, we don't have to.
Recreational tax actually is.
It's called recreational land, and so it's taxed differently, I believe, or the assessment rate is different. I'm not, I think
It's not a separate tax.
No,
Higher than that. It's a higher right now.
it's higher than it, yes. And so that's the piece of it that I can't speak to that for sure, but what I can tell you is the agricultural land thing is not, this isn't the first time you run into this battle. In Riley County, we are a lot more stringent on making sure we have documentation for it to go ag than any of the other places I've seen. You know, we do really have a high standard on what we need to see to say, yeah, this is really an agricultural property. And we are trying to ensure that that's what's happening. But there's some things that, you know, when we have that document, what else can we do without something much solid to say that's not what's happening?
Well, and it's very clear that he is using the majority of his land for recreation. I mean, you can barely, you know, like I said, you guys want to do land, you would.
I
I will not get on his property, but I will take you up there and show you the properties are that way. And even though she had documentation that the lease from his leasee, there's too much acres that aren't being used. There's way too many acres.
Well, that, again, that's the state rule, if there's any portion of that.
Right.
And the one you're talking about, they may be two different tracks.
Yeah.
The one you're talking about, you lease portion of it.
Well, I know one farm we had bought recently, had not had anything done. There has never been no cattle on it, there's no ag practices on it at all. He owned on both sides of it, so I don't know if you managed to put that together or how that's worked. But it is a separate tract of land. It has its own separate deed. Whether it went together now or not.
Yeah, and what she said about being very strict about making sure they have, because I just got a complaint yesterday from somebody complaining about what restriction to, what they had to do to prove that it was ag. There, so I got it from the other direction saying, well, we do it, why do they have to know about this? That's, you know, they have to show that they did kind of hay on that.
It's
Well,
not really a statutory requirement to require some of that in some cases. So we really are trying to truly ensure that we have solid documentation. And that's just the other piece of it. When you look at what's required, we can ask for as much as we can, but if we were to go to the board and they provided what he provided me, they would side with him.
Well, what are you doing with the tax appraisal part of it where he's buying all this land at such an inflated price? Are us neighbors that border him, is that gonna reflect on us down the line?
Just a little bit more.
We review all of the sales in the county. If that sale is not listed on the open market, it's not going to be considered an arm's length transaction. We are aware that some of those were never listed, and so those specific sales are not going to be listed as market type transactions. So I know what you're referring to, and we're paying attention.
But I also understand that since he appealed, you were gonna return him money for 2022.
I'm not returning any money, but the way that works, is it's through an abatement process. If he overpaid because there was corrections to his to the assessment rate, going from a market land to an agricultural land, he would have received a refund. But that's not me, that's doing my job as the appraiser, making sure I have what I need to make a decision and moving forward. And that was and that's what we had to do in this particular situation.
And what about the idle threats he's made towards your personnel working with you?
The threats made towards my personnel, he's not dealing directly with the personnel anymore. I will not lie to anybody. I understand the story. I was not here when that happened, but I can tell you that I have told my staff there will be nobody making any threats towards anyone. And I have spoken with a particular person and let him know that I will not tolerate that type of behavior towards my staff. So the conversations that I have had with him have been amicable and clear that, but at the same time, when we are going out on a property, if we are asked to leave, we have to leave. Statutorily, we have a duty to be on that property, we have a right to be there. But if we've been told not to be there and we show up anyway after we're told, we're kind of crossing some lines. If we go out on a property and we're asked to leave, we leave. But if we're clearly told not to go out there without letting them know we're going to be there for certain reasons, and we do, we're going to get ourselves in trouble or hurt at that. So I'm aware, and I'm very, very much not okay with my staff being threatened, but I wasn't here when that happened. So as we move forward, I'm going to do everything we can just to ensure my staff safety, and that we are following policies and procedures.
But it sounds like he's dictating your ability to do your job.
Anybody can tell us that we can't be on their property, but if anybody threatens while I'm in this position, I'll be filing a police report. And it will be documented that we will not set foot on the property because I can't put myself in danger. We have aerial photos that were flown in 2020, and we'll do the best that we can do.
Okay, and that's Mr. Organization 7 with the brother and talking to her about it.
Get the paperwork on it and
Right.
signature. Because like I said, I have spoken to people that are on the land, and they said they have signed. Now, whether they, like I said, I didn't realize they were allowing such a small portion, even tracts that were not being used as ag that were taken to him, if they're allowing them, well then. Yeah, then them guys probably are calling a piece of that land, and if they're touching, and they're allowing that, then there's not much.
You can also feel free at some point in time to reach out to your state delegation, representatives, member of Senate, they're the ones that make those statutes. So,
Well, like I said, I'm really worried about the future of Northern Riley County by losing all our youth up there, and we're gonna lose our housing, we're gonna lose, any new kids in the area, we're not gonna have it, and that's just gonna be a woodland up there, and that's all it's gonna be.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. We need to move on.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, 6:30. Tyson?
Yes, Commissioner Clancy, Holman, Counselor, I've given you a copy of Senate Bill 323. We just talked about it, due by Friday. And what it does is it's a proposal by the Senate to make across the state, to make county appraisers who currently are appointed by county committees, to make them an elected office. We talked about this, as Rich indicated in the past, if you've gotten to the point of discussions with the legislature. I don't remember whether or not it's actually reduced to the bill comes in. But given the tenor of some of the bills that are out there, as Commissioner McKinley indicated, I think it could be that it might have some traction. You can't really, some of the things that in years past, I think local government can probably ignore. Well, that's kind of a fringe idea. Particularly because you've had statements from prior county appraiser, only because you were here. I think he would have said the same thing. He routinely pointed out that the current valuation system in the state of Kansas, as managed by the Department of Revenue, was in kind of a model for other states and how property tax works. Believe that or not, based on recent value increases, but the values that our county appraisers use across the state are values that are reported as a result of sale and are driven by the market, and they're very strict as to what they require county appraisers to do to assemble that information. What's legitimate, what can be considered, what can't be considered. There was some conversation earlier about valid sale. They can have use fire sale type information on property to artificially inflate or deflate whatever the market is saying, and it's never going to be perfect. I would guarantee no system's ever going to be perfect. But one of the things that's driven our system is that there is this element of objectivity that's injected in it. And the concern that has been expressed before by prior boards, I've raised a couple of times, pretty obvious. If you turn a position that is designed in a very technical field to be as objective as possible and to answer to a governing body, we turn that instead into an elected office. A couple things that are entirely possible. One being whether it's true or not. I think many members of the public are going to assume, let's say that elected person is top-notch appraiser. They take it as seriously as our appraiser does their job, and take it seriously. They work hard, they try and comply with all the state standards. When somebody who maybe isn't willing to look at the objective evidence on a sale, the value of their home, for example, against somebody else's, and it happens to be that the person who got the quote better deal on their value in the eyes of one of the people just happens to have contributed to the election campaign of the county appraiser, what's the first thing that person's going to do? They're going to think that's why. They're going to think that's why. And it's going to be broader than just obviously one person. And it won't matter, I would submit, how much actual compliance is being done by that county appraiser. There's going to be, I think, very often a perception that political concerns are driving the decisions on property valuation. Right now, those kind of concerns, when they come up, when they're raised, it's actually pretty easy to come up with information that says, look, why values. You may disagree with it, But here's what we consider, look at it, this is it. And yes, have an informal appeal, and a protest, go to the Board of Tax Appeals. I mean, that here's how we came up with it. And there were corrections made routinely. When somebody addressed, when somebody raised them, the informal level, I'm sure we can bear that out on both commercial and residential property, because it serves them well to get it right. Not just because they'll have a flood of people challenging what they're doing, but because they want to. They want to do the valuation correctly. So making it an elective office in the first place can create that perception card dealing or unfairness, or however you want to describe it, favoritism. And how are you gonna beat that? I mean, how are you gonna, a lot of times, how are you gonna meet that in close cases? So I submit that's a kind of a problem, but also the other problem it raises is, quite frankly, under the Nylander case, one of the things that would happen is that all elected officials in the state, I'm not saying this is bad, one of the best lawyers I know is one who's primarily responsible for the Nylander case. I occasionally I wanted to talk to David Cooper about that. That case stands for the proposition that in this state, an elected official has certain authorities that maybe they don't have in other states regarding the budget. And one of the most important things any board of county commissioners does, as everybody knows, is they build a budget so the county's operating expense. That's what all those conversations about. Value and bill that high or low, and you get them the bill and still provide services that the government as the governing board wants to, according to the demands of the constituents. So if you're you've got a case called Nylander out there, where the courts in Kansas decided that it's not really up to the board finally on certain elements of any elected official's budget. If the elected official can in good faith show, and this would have to be shown, that yes, this is the amount you're budgeting for my office, but to do my statutory duties, those things that the law assigns this office to do, I need this or that. I need more staff. I need more equipment and technical. In those places where there are sheriffs, instead of in Lycan counties like our other county, which has a director. There's often conflict between the elected sheriff and the governing bodies, because of the nature of how expensive it is sometimes to do law enforcement things. So it's nothing anybody's familiar with. If the sheriff comes in and says, I need a helicopter, right? It's kind of a big deal. And under Nylander, if the sheriff in the given county could make that claim legitimate, and I can't do some element of my statutory duties without doing that a helicopter. More staff, more whatever, a different building, because whatever I've got is falling apart. It's better, I've got a dilapidated jail that needs major revamping, because I got people leaving, deciding on their own when their sentences over. So any of those things that a credible argument could be made, that will be different if the office becomes elected. I'm not saying candidates planning surreptitiously back there to suddenly inflate their next budget request, but it's something that governing bodies have to be aware of. I mean, that changes the playing field, because it just does. It would add an element of lack of control over expenses of one office that you currently have. You have that control. Again, not to suggest that a current county appraiser, prior county appraiser can take advantage. Another thing that kind of jumps out at me in Senate Bill 323, I mean, it talks about, as far as a requirement for the person who's elected as the county appraiser. Under the current system, there's a large number of many things that have to be done before somebody's on the list that the state says this list of individuals are certified with training, education, and experience. That means they could act as county appraiser. They have technical skills. They know how to do property evaluation. They know how to comply with PDD guidelines, that sort of thing, property evaluation. And it's those people on that list. You have to be on that list before the state will approve someone who the county commissioners in any county, but point is the county appraiser. Not have this, it means you don't have the base qualifications. This doesn't eliminate that problem. I mean, it does not eliminate that.
I've got an example to share here.
Yeah, I thought, I couldn't remember who talked about it. Yeah, so there's reasons why, I mean, that can be changed too in this bill. That's one thing about legislation. I mean, this is a 41-page bill. On that, just as one concept, turning the council, turning the appointed county appraiser position from the state into an elected position and doing it this year in an election in the fall. Now, that could change. As this thing moves through, presumably it will move, it'll have a hearing in committee and it will get presumably voted out onto the floor of the Senate and then sent over to the other chamber. You reintroduce in another committee and then and go on to the floor and in both chambers have it in. Or one chamber or the other can change it a little bit. And then by the end of the session, it needs to go to a conference committee. And then you have just a group of legislators and they won't have any other hearing. They just simply meet and decide what it needs to read like. Bring it back, and if it makes it above the line, some of those things in that whichever chamber it goes back to, then it can get out there for a floor debate and vote. You know, further committee hearing on any changes. It's one of the great charms of legislation. Very often you don't see the final version until suddenly it's become law. So those are the things that kind of jump out. You want to comment?
I had a couple observations and then, an example of how this doesn't work, but there is a reason why we do have a property and evaluation. And it's specific to this, to the nature of this because of the importance of it. And all the appraisers around the state have to interact with them, have to follow the statutes, have to go through that process. But not also do we appoint and hire somebody that's based off of a list, but another layer that gets involved in that is we have a 4-year contract. So unlike some of our other departments, and unlike some of the people that we hire, we do have to every 4 years evaluate and look at it and make sure that that's the person we want, that's the person that we need, and so on and so forth. So you kind of, by virtue of kind of taking all the intricacies and everything that you've discussed as being a problem with this, and kind of converted it over to that. So it's not a position that we didn't leave in place and it's just there. We have to evaluate that, look at that in real time every 4 years. Amidst the political side of that, I've always worried that I'm in a position, we'll maybe play favoritism here and there. The example that I have actually comes from, I can't remember the county state in Colorado. They do elect theirs. They had an 18-year-old kid talking about requirements, talking about having a list, having qualifications. This 18-year-old kid just graduated high school, decided to run for that position because he thought it'd be a pretty decent job to maybe have while he was going to college. So on and so forth. He ran, he won. Their county spent well over $1 million unbudgeted money that they didn't have budgeted to make sure the individual was trained, to make sure the individual did get the qualifications because they're liable at that particular point in time. That's what you're facing here if you decide to go that route. I understand the evaluation process this year has been tough. It's rough for the profit board. It's obviously going to get the state riled up. But have to use some common sense, and you have to approach it from the perspective of how can we do this the best possible way. And you mentioned on the outset there that our model currently is one that's being looked at nationwide. Why in the middle of that change then? If it's not, I'm trying to use. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
So is this, who, do you know who sponsored this?
Sometimes I'm seeing that on, I can't call that quickly now, in my lack of technical skill. They have a deal here that says who your current sponsor is that you can get to on the, if you go to the legislative website, you'll be able to tell. I find a lot of times it doesn't even tell you a whole lot. It could be introduced by a committee.
My guess is it's probably by committee, considering the committee, it's the federal and state affairs committee.
Sometimes it tells you something, sometimes it doesn't.
So what are the possibilities?
I have no idea.
No idea.
Well, because there's too many shell bills out there for one thing. There's too many bills that I'm not gonna go anywhere. I'm sorry.
It could be that thing, stuff.
Yeah, they could do a got to go thing, they call it, where it shows up again because they got a bill and was the, I don't know, whatever it would be. Name whatever your issue is, went to committee. They never worked it, it just sat there. And what they do is if the committee level, they just pull everything out of that, and suddenly it's got this. It's got a new number, so nobody even sees, nobody's watching, even knows the numbers change. And then suddenly you're looking at Florida Day, wait, they're talking about electing a county appraiser. And then it's, you know, I mean, that's a version of how we ended up originally, with the now repealed tax levy. That was done at the rail without any committee hearings. So.
And the sponsor introduced by Senator Peck from Atlanta, Kansas.
I think he's been on a couple. It is a
Atlanta, Kansas, District 15, District 15. Version. And they requested the introduction and everything after that, so maybe.
District 15.
Any updates on any of the other, those we've been watching?
And
No.
not tonight. Any updates?
Okay. Anything else? No.
So we work following.
The next. Is it in like 4 minutes?
Yes, Director P, get it 6:50.
Did what I could to eat up your time there.
Before you act attack, so while we are waiting, I was gonna ask for that helicopter.
Yeah.
If you take it in a building, the house then.
Big mayor.
I like to be 20 years younger with a head full of hair and a little bit more healthy, but that's probably not.
Not asked for that. I mean, the door is.
Thanks, Lance.
Appreciate it. That's not the way it's speed books, just sign it. Always is. Come on, I can tell you, what they were. Thank you. They could do the old thing. I'm gonna go do that, still all my, they get that. I said, well, here you go, you can paint it.
Oh, you know. Sure.
Seventh grade. Catching up about grades and directly in most around. It's not close to the lens. Okay, we'll let you go out here and look at it.
Yeah.
I was like that too.
That's what's nice. 7th grade meeting. Right?
We have the records. It's not church, man. I'm sure why I would always feel better. So they had, again, this one. I know. Yeah, like all.
Well, the reason I'm saying, well, this one is, yeah, that's what you try. Maybe do they know that this way?
There you go. Have fun.
Good evening, members of the county commission, county clerk, our elected officials here in Raleigh, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Brian Peake with the Raleigh County Police Department. It's absolutely a pleasure to be back here in Raleigh again. Just wanted to give just a quick overview of some of the general things that have been going on in the area. And then behind me is Sergeant Pat Teedy, who is the supervisor for the officers in the North County. He's just gonna put out some specifics, some statistics, some other information as to what the officers are doing here specifically in Raleigh. But we've had a rash of, specifically in the area of Manhattan, of car break-ins. Those are attributed to folks, whoever's doing it or the folks that are involved in doing it are not breaking windows or forcibly entering vehicles. They're mainly taking advantage of folks who are counting on the goodwill of others and not locking their windows or not locking their cars or keeping their windows down. So we are seeing a spike in that. We are working to address those issues. There's also, I think, with what's been going on in the world now, or in the country, we've been seeing an increase in threats, or whether it's social media or whether it's something that's scribed on a bathroom, or calling or an email regarding threats to our schools. There is nothing, I don't want to say that everything we take is really important, but one of the most passionate things that our department focuses on is any threat to our children. So with that being said, the increases of incidents that we've seen in the county are not attributed to any specific thing. This is not like that there's a group, that there's a concentration. These are all tend to be isolated incidences. Some that were swatting incidences, the terrible pranks, others that were issues of individuals who were mentally ill. And so it's not that we're seeing that there's a trend that gives us alarm. So based on the information we have right now, we want to let folks know that we believe our schools are safe. We work very closely with the school staff. We work very closely with the community, and that's the key. So my daughter always will still go to the schools. I have faith in the staff. I have extraordinary faith in our government. I have extraordinary faith in the men and women of the department. So so with that being said, I just wanted to do what I could to let the public know that is extraordinarily focused for us.
I do have a question on that subject, Director. How do you as a law enforcement agency, and how do we legally approach that when we can find those individuals? I mean, these are obviously felonies. How do we approach that, and how do we prosecute those scenarios, and how do we clamp down on that to make sure that it does not happen?
So in some cases, it's a good offense is a good defense, and I think that we definitely want to make an example out of that one, because it's not just a prank. I mean, there's so much that falls into that. There's so much so much of a mental game that people are playing with families and with children. So we take that, and I know that our county attorney takes that really seriously too. So when we find the individuals who are involved in these different types of things, we will go to Barry, and then we'll work with him to see what state charges we can pop. And in some instances, depends on what it is, we might even be able to go federal. So we will try to go to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law if we can.
Commissioner Ford, I believe on the, if you remember the swatting incident that occurred at Lee Elementary.
Yes.
It was, the person that was doing it was found to be in Ohio. And the FBI, of course, anytime that we believe that it's going to be, or it develops into a swatting type of situation, our local FBI office, along with our embedded officer, they're notified immediately, and they, as in this case, became a wealth of assistance to us. Anyway, that person was tracked quite a while afterwards, put to Ohio, and was prosecuted not only in Ohio, but I believe also federally.
Okay.
So there is,
In that case.
I think we've had experience with these types of calls. We believe that we are responding appropriately to them and working with our federal partners to help find who's doing it.
Appreciate it.
Other than that, Sergeant T, if you have any stats or information that you want to share with the
Well, I wanted to introduce myself. There's a lot of familiar faces in the room, but this room started to become a little bit more familiar to me. I was here earlier this week. Yeah, Pat T. I'm sergeant at the police department. I am going to be taking over the supervisory role here in North County after 24 years at the police department. I feel like I've been in every nook and cranny of the county, and now I get to help facilitate the direction it goes. So the biggest thing, and I've been there, I'm on light duty, so I'm not in uniform. I'm currently sitting at a desk during the day, which is painful in and of itself, but I'm recovering from surgery. The biggest thing that I've seen in the difference between the officers and detectives that are working in the city versus the officers that are working up here on a daily basis is the information sharing. And it spans borders. The officers email, call, talk to residents, talk to Clay County officers, Pot County, Washington County. Since the crime is not nearly what it is in the city, those officers are able to focus more directly on those cases that they get, and they share that information. So just because, you know, Officer Melvin is going off duty doesn't mean that the case investigation is stopping. I've been so impressed with just how extensive the information sharing is. I'm excited. I'm so excited to be working with these guys. Therefore, along with that, they're able to clear more cases just because it's a smaller group of individuals that are committing crime, and so our enforcement is more focused. So far it's been very impressive to see. The next time I meet with you guys, will probably have some more stats. Also, we're coming in, and I'm not a fireman. I don't claim to be one, but burning up here in the county it's that time of year. Things happen, and we a lot of times do get called. And so I just caution everybody, please be mindful. Pay attention to the burn bans like there was today, and safety is, you know, paramount. We've had accidents as it related to fires being caused, whether it be accidental or intentional. We do take that very serious. The safety of the public and property owners is paramount, especially this time of year. So that's all I have for now, and I look forward to giving you guys updates on a regular basis.
Appreciate you.
You bet.
any questions for us, Matt?
Any questions from the audience, the director?
I might just add, you've got a few minutes, any special events, anything coming up that our CPD is working on?
We do have a training that we did. We pursued a grant. We're working with, I think it's the National Foundation. And so we have a training that's coming up regarding human and sex trafficking. Included in that, it's a 4-day training. It's for free. We got it for free. And included in that is training on the dark web. So one of the things is like now, I can't even program a computer at this point anymore. I used to be able to do it with a VCR, but a lot of crimes are going to the point that they're more done on the web. You know, you're seeing increases in things like people who are ordering their dope and having it sent straight to them at the house. So we're looking at dark web, and so the training that we're going to get is going to help us with those particular areas, but it's also going to help us looking at things like human and sex trafficking. That is a huge priority of our county attorney. That is a personal priority of mine. And so we're just looking for different ways that we can, when we know what we see, or when we see something, we know what it is, that can help us to move it, or to help as many people as possible.
I also aware that we're gonna have a CIT training. Sometime in June, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that they are, yes, Lieutenant Asher and
Yes.
the group are bringing back a for CIT training, and then, we did hire a second mental health correspondent.
Mhm.
We finally got one in, so it's been
Next week.
yeah, so she should be starting up here pretty soon.
Good deal.
I make one more point.
Mhm.
We have been able to successfully investigate so many more break-ins, burglaries, thefts, because people have doorbell cameras, or just cameras in general. So much so, I'm buying another one. It has helped us tremendously, and it's not us doing it, it's the public. So thank you for what you're doing. Please continue to do that, and you're being great neighbors, you're being great partners. Continue to do that. It's helped us immensely. Thank you.
Edwin, especially when you're talking about Officer Melvin, the ones that have been out here for a long time, people know them, especially like around Randolph. I think half people up there have his cell phone. He might be off duty, but he gets calls, whether he's on duty or not. I think he's mentioned that, and and he responds. He knows, they've been up here long enough that people are starting to, we get to know personally these guys, which has been good. Like I said, I think it helps, like he said, it helps. Because we keep an eye and we say, hey, you see them?
Yes, sir. And if I may, on the tour, I got to going around to all the cities and municipalities within the county. One thing I've really learned is our elected officials here and our citizens here really want that personal touch. And we are very, very cognizant that we're not going to send over that 23-year-old officer who wants to run a gun and kind of just, they're focused on certain things. There's a certain level of personality and just how an introspect that I think that it takes. So we're not just looking to put anybody really young in these positions. We're looking at, I consider our department the best. So we're looking at that best of the best that's going to be able to relate, and then we all care about the community, but the people who just really want to go that extra mile is who we focus on always keeping up here in town.
Okay,
Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you.
The 511 students. County.
If you want to bring your banner up here, you can do that.
So before the direct agents, I'm gonna mention, Melvin was mentioned. One reason he's so popular, he's a fireman.
You had to get that one in there.
You see, right?
You got some-
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Evening, Commissioners. One of the things that you'd asked me before was, a little more detailed, printout, if you will, of the types of calls that our different fire stations go to. And so on a big sheet that I gave you, that we did a breakdown of whether, it's a building fire or a transport vehicle or natural vegetation. And so you can see the different fire stations across the top. And then as you go down, you can see what kind of fires they went to. And this is for the year of 2022. So for the entire year of 2022. You can see that the totals at the bottom would be the total fires. So you can see that station 103 is our busiest station, which is in Auburn. And 105, which is our station here in Riley, is kind of in the upper middle. And Riley's the one unique thing about Riley is it's the only county in the county that's still maintaining the city volunteer fire department, which is located right next to the county's fire station here in town. I don't know if you have any questions about the type of calls or number of calls. So you can see the number of calls per station, very widely. Obviously, the more people that live close to the station typically means the more calls are going to this. So the other document that I hand out to you, the other thing you mentioned that you'd like me to come tonight to the meetings out in the county. It's for recruitment purposes, to get out the word that we're constantly recruiting. And so I have the banner that my deputy chief John Martins and Vivian, our BIO, had a big hand in creating. And I think maybe Janie Dunson might have helped some too, who's one of our volunteers in at the front of our Randolph station. And along with that, some more of our recruitment tools. I brought several of these that I'll leave here at City Hall, and they may already have some here, I don't know, but just in case they're running low. We've done some of these type of pamphlets for recruitment, and this summer we went to the Randolph 4th of July, and we went to Leonardville Hall Blue, and then this winter we went to Riley High School 2 different nights doing basketball games and set up a recruitment group. We've had some success, but as you know, we are constantly getting new and then losing firefighters. Some because they age out, some because they move away. With the college population and the military population, obviously we're constantly losing them to graduation and being stationed in other places. The smaller document is, as of this month, that's how many firefighters we have on the roster at those given stations. And the column on the right would be a number that, there's no way to know for sure how many you should have at each station because there's such a wide variance of how often people can go. I think I don't have the exact math, but I'm pretty confident in saying that 80% of our calls are responded to by about 20% of people. That 20% is who make the vast majority of calls. And so, out of 6 people at this email station, for example, there's really only about 2, 3 that go on almost all of the calls. So, not knowing, people's work schedules, and that's why, we only have 6 there now, but we'd sure like to have more like 15. And, Ogden, we only have 5. It's the second biggest population center in the county, but we only have 5 volunteers there. So that's why that number is so big. It's why I felt 20 would be a good number to have there, because it is one of the bigger population centers. So I don't know if you have any questions on any of those items.
Just that stands even with the need, we still do have the largest volunteer fire station.
I'm sure some people would debate that, but other fire districts, but I think it's a reasonable statement, when you consider the land we cover, the number of stations we have, and the number of volunteers. There are other fire districts that have more square miles, but they probably have a lot less people and fewer stations. There's others that may have more volunteers, but they're a smaller county, but they're much more heavily populated. So there's, maybe a little bit of public information officer freedom there. But nobody has said, "Oh, you're absolutely wrong." We're definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest.
You take a moment and explain just the different types of volunteer firefighters that we do have.
Sure, we have everything from 18-year-olds that just got out of high school or could possibly still be in high school to 75 and 80-year-olds. We have everything from people that are on public assistance and food stamps to multimillionaires. We have farmers, we have business men and women, nurses,
Police officers.
police officers. I don't know if we have any elected officials.
There are pictures of me thrown around, that is true.
But
So Manhattan Fire, Manhattan Fire.
yeah, we have several Manhattan firefighters that are volunteers. Here in Riley, I think there's more than one. I think at Sweet Creek, there's at least 1 or 2. Yeah, we have. I am not so sure that there are half a dozen, maybe a dozen across the county. And Fort Riley, we have at least 1, and potentially 2 or 3 Fort Riley firefighters that live in our communities that volunteer for us. So, all walks of life, whether it's a insurance salesman or a truck driver, with one of our most active ones is she is a graphic designer for K-Station. Is one of our more active firefighters. So men and women, county employees. We're down to not very many, but and those are, I appreciate the county being supportive of that, and I would encourage the commission to continue to encourage department heads to allow that, because as an example, if we don't allow it, how do we expect businesses in the county to allow their people to work? There's more than one, Blueville Nursery is one of the biggest ones. I think they're the single biggest, or the employer with this largest number of volunteer firefighters as far as that are members of the department, and they're the employer with the most. There's a couple others on the list and drawing blank right now, so I feel bad for those other employers, but
So Louisville doesn't even continue to pay them.
correct, that's my understanding. They aren't losing any pay when they go by the fire force. So yeah, Blueville is very highly regarded by the fire.
But I will say, some people take vacation to go fight fires.
Correct.
Those whose employers don't allow
Right,
leave, will take their vacation time to go fight fires.
right. So, you know, we're always, as I said before, always recruiting and looking for volunteers, and so. Like I said, I have several of these, I was gonna leave some here at City Hall, and anybody has any questions. Don't hesitate to ask. There was something else that I was thinking of, but I'm going to. I can talk about the fire stations for a minute. I don't know where I have time.
You did leave out one, we do have a couple celebrities.
Roger and Kim, yeah, they were on national news and got a trip to
Mexico.
Mexico. We were doing an interview with
I was gonna say Regis and Kelly, it's Kelly and Ryan,
Yeah.
live with Kelly and Ryan,
that's
Kelly and.
yeah.
Talk about the new fire stations.
So yes, you know, prior to my taking over, there was a pretty aggressive fire station building campaign. A lot of the fire stations were old cinder block buildings that were built in the early '60s when the fire district started, and a lot of those are from the course. There's 2 of those still left in service. One is in University Park and one is in Ashland. The one in Ashland is just a single bay, still with a dirt floor. And one in University Park is a 2-stall fire station. We, as the commissioners know, we accepted bids and opened them Monday morning. They came in considerably higher than what we had hoped. So we have our advisory board involved, battalion chiefs a week from Tuesday. And so I'm planning on talking with them to see what direction they want to go. In my opinion, we can't afford the prices that were presented to us. I think there's a couple of options that we may look at, maybe coming back to the board. Part of that, I need to talk with Clancy about the bidding process and what are the minimum requirements, especially we did on stuff, because I know we got quotes prior to the bidding process that were much lower than what we got through the bidding process. And so one of the ideas is to be our own general contractor, which I think the past administration had done some, and do the dirt work separate from the construction itself, because some of the smaller builders don't want us with dirt work. They just want to come in and build on another site and explore our options there. I think from the numbers that I've seen, we could easily, instead of $300,000, we could do something, get something done for less than 200. So for a 30-some% savings and possibly saving 100,000 per station, I think we have to explore that option. So, but yeah, those both came in excess of 300,000, and I'm told that the previous stations built on a similar plan, similar size, one at Blue River Hills, one at Sweet Creek, and one at Mayday were built for less than 100,000, 80-some thousand plus the big electrical. And so I know things have went up, but 80-some thousand to 300,000 just pretty expensive. So after we have our advisory board meeting and see what direction they want to go, I'll be back with the commission with our preferred plan of action. The other piece was the other idea was just build the Ashland station and then spend some money on the University Park station to fix it up and hopefully get another 10 or 15 years out of it, and then see where finances are there. The district's carrying enough debt load. I just can't justify adding the debt to the debt load of debt service. I think it's taking up approximately 17% of our money now. Taking debt service. But I'll be talking to Nancy and seeing what our options are to try and encourage those smaller builders to put in and participate in the progress. Hopefully we'll have as much. Any other questions?
Yeah.
You're gonna put that. So you're not going through point C.
It's not that I don't mind saying, you never talk to me.
I think that's all I have unless the commissioners will have any questions.
I don't.
Thank you.
What did you pop up? I got 7:20. Late enough. 7:20.
10 minutes.
Just a few seconds, yeah.
Well, we've got probably about 30 seconds.
It's not.
At the time now, okay.
I was a quick 30 seconds. Time flies. It does.
I'm Darcy Foxcroft, City of Riley. I became the mayor in January, so this is kind of new. Prior to that, I've been on the community or the city council for roughly 5 years. I took the place of one counselor who moved to the county. And our mayor is moved out of town, and it's one of our policies that the mayor has to be in town. So I'm now the mayor. You know, we have elections this year, but we have several new people in the city of Riley. We have 2 new clerks. As the mayor left, so did our beloved clerk of many years, Doris, retired. And she's loving it, but we're learning. We have 2 brand new went well. Josie's been cross-trained with Doris for a little while, and then Monday started our utility building clerk. So some of the things we've accomplished here, we just finished a major sewer project with a CDBG grant, but we now have every utility, every city sewer line. So we're thinking that that's between the water project that happened before my time and this one. I think our infrastructure is in really good shape. And the next step, what I'm trying to do, and I've had some really good feedback on it, is I'm holding planning sessions, not meetings, but just planning sessions. We're having our second one next week, and inviting the public, because now, I mean, we've got our infrastructure, you know, everybody wants roads, but that's expensive. But I want to know what else everybody wants, and we're inviting the public to come and talk to us. We did have some good feedback last time, and I think we have a way to go, but you know, everything costs money, so we're trying to figure out how we go about going forward with some of the ideas. But then there's other small things that we're thinking about too, that's gonna welcome packets to anybody in town, new people in town. I guess we used to do it, and I think we'll probably bring that back. Works well with getting everybody to know, getting new people to know that we care and have, you know, all the things that we can do in town. And I know most of the businesses here would donate to it. So the other big thing we have coming up is municipal court. We're starting a court here. It'll be held once a month, and I'm very excited about it because I think it's going to help. We did I know I forget the name of it. The cities, the small cities that went around, and you know, 3 people from here went to 3 different towns, and those 3 different towns sent people to us to get a look, the first look or something is what it's called, and got the feedback from the people on what they saw, and most of it was positive. The negative parts were, you know, right when you would enter town, you have some homes that have a lot of stuff hanging around. and it's not very clean and tidy, and, you know, there's a few places around town that, generally it was good, but I think that's gonna help. I know Doris talked about it all the time, and I always said she was a woman of 16 hats, because she was the dog catcher, she was the grass, checking the grass, make sure they mowed their grass, she took the water, everything, she did it all. And this is gonna be helpful. You know, we'll see. We know it's not a moneymaker. We know we're gonna lose money on it, but that's okay. I think it will help our city. And that's what we're shooting for. On a fun note, our Pride Committee is putting in a new disc golf. It's gonna be down by our pool, so, and we're hoping to start having tournaments here. So we're thinking along those lines as well for different things we can do to bring people in for different types of tournaments and things. You know, we talked with Tuesday night was our meeting, and the school was there, a representative from the school, talking about how we can build our numbers without, you know, we have a lot of people in town who don't want to explode to 4,000 people, but we want to get our numbers up in the school system. But we're having a problem with housing. So we don't have the room to grow a lot. We do have some space this way, but we're kind of blocked the rest of the places. But we're going to try to put our heads together between us and Randolph, Leonardville, Keats, and try to see what we can do to have affordable housing for people to rent, or land for people to buy and build. So, anybody have any questions for me?
I don't have any questions, but I have a couple observations. Over the last few years, I've been really, really impressed with the things I've seen coming in here. Community Health Center, you guys have kind of updated facilities, and you just kind of just really cool and creative, innovative businesses here in town. It's just great to see in a small community, a small rural community, that those things can happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're trying to bring more. Let's bring some more business down, trying to do that. The one thing we have on is we're really trying to get a community center. And that was one thing that came out of our planning. So we're ground zero on it. So if there's anybody has any grand ideas, shoot them our way, because we're at ground zero. We have someone who has some land who will, but the only way he will go forward with it is if we will, and he sees progress on getting a community center. So he doesn't want to, he's wanted one for 10, 15 years, and it's never happened. So he says, if we move forward and can get this going, he will get this done. So.
You want to introduce your other commissioners and city commissioners?
I could do that. I should do that. I have two city council people here with me. Jan McKinley. She took over my spot when I moved to mayor, and then William Isom. You've been on for, this is almost
4 years plus appointments. So.
yeah. So he's been with us quite some time. So, guys have anything to add?
I'll get it clear that I'm not moving to the county at the end of this year.
You're not re-upping.
No.
So
And you're a council of 5, is that correct? Plus a man?
what's my
Wow.
Well, I liked your ideas of having the planning meetings and trading with another town. That sounds like a great idea. Get feedback and what you do. So.
And that was, I don't know, do you remember that? Craig? That happened a while back. I can't remember.
It was some kind of state group.
Yeah, it was the
that
state
organized it.
for smaller towns. And it was, well, I think towns of any size, but they grouped them
By
together.
size, yeah.
Manhattan could have had it done with other cities their size, but
Well, in fact, I think they did.
did they?
Yeah, I've heard that they did some.
Yeah.
It's been like this for several years ago. Said they had a lot of neat stuff, they needed to clean up stuff, and that's what. So for how many years we've been talking about, municipal court.
And we're finally,
Getting it through.
yeah, we're finally down to, we have a judge, we have the prosecuting attorney and the, yeah, the other attorney. Public defender, thank you. And we're waiting on one little piece of information, and I have someone who will become a code enforcer that's currently here in town, is coming in, was actually a code enforcer in Manhattan. So it'll be, I think it'll be good when they come in and they're not aggressive, they're not overly aggressive at all, and I think in a small community, that's kind of what we need, is somebody who's going to work with them to get up to code versus come in and slap a ticket down and go, you're in violation of code. I don't think they'll do that. So. Oh,
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Are they gonna be given some directive to give people some time to get stuff done? I mean, you said that you think they're gonna do that, but then made it sound like you weren't so sure that they.
Oh, no, I'm 100% sure that that's exactly what they're gonna do, because I know this person personally, and I said, you can't come in here like a bulldog, and they said, and I know them well enough, that's not what they do. They want to talk it over. They want to try to get them to come up to code. And we'll give them plenty of time, but, you know, we all who live here kind of know some of the hurdles they're gonna run into because they drag their feet, but I think it's gonna work. I was very proud of our two new clerks as well. They are putting their foot down on water. We had quite a few people who's been delayed on getting their water bills paid, and we'll work with them, that's fine, but some people are just habitually late. So they put out warnings that we're gonna turn your water off. It shook people, and we had 18 people who we put door hangers on. Well, I think 4 of them paid before we got it out there, 14 people with door hangers, and we ended up, I don't think we ended up turning anybody off. They all didn't pay. So that was proud of them for that. Not that we like to be rough and tumble, but you know, you gotta pay your bills because there's other people who are extremely conscientious and pay their bill all the time.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Well, welcome to Riley, and thank you for coming up here. I really appreciate that.
Vivian.
I'm Vivian Neva, Public Information Officer for Riley County, and I will be so brief, because things are going well, we're doing good. That's it, thank you. No,
Communication.
yeah. I got it now, I was having. So first, I just want to lead by saying thank you. I'm continually amazed at the great media coverage we get, and it's due a lot in part to it's due mostly to great media partners we have, but they work with us so well because we're friendly, we grant interviews. Russell and I were almost late to the meeting because KSMT called and said, hey, can we drive all the way up to Topeka to talk to your fire department about fire danger tomorrow? And they've got a lot of other choices. They could have asked for an interview in Shawnee and just gone down the street. But because we'll grant interviews on short notice, we do a good job, we're experts, we're hopefully easy to work with. And I feel like that's just a reflection of who we are as an organization and as a community. They drive all the way from Topeka to talk to us about, you know, the massive fire danger tomorrow, which thank you. Thank you also for making time for it. But then it's due to the whole organization being so easy to work with. I've had a few more news releases since I made this update because we've had a couple more fires, and a lot of the news we put out this time of year is about fires. And I talked with John the other day, the recruitment numbers are pretty steady throughout the year, but they do notice a spike after we've had so much time in the news and people are become aware that the rural fire department exists and the great work that they do. And they think, oh yeah, maybe I want to go drive that big truck and go fight a fire. It's actually, Doug let me ride in the fire truck with lights and sirens today, so I could go take pictures, and man, it was pretty fun. So, yeah, always, you know, don't want anybody to get hurt or any property to be damaged, but, you know, going out there in a field and fighting, it was pretty fun. Social media, every time I look at these numbers, I get a little bit depressed. I spent a lot of extra time and energy the past month to see if it was me. I put out more information than I have the entire time that I've been here, but I'm getting great interaction. People are picking up the messages, we're getting more reach, and then I look and it's not nearly as much as I thought. So even if I churn out content and it's interesting and there's stuff on fire, we'll get a little bit of an uptick, but social media is a relationship software. And people don't necessarily, in the same way that they don't come to our lobby to hang out, they come to us for a purpose. They don't come to our social media sites just for entertainment to do what they're doing. And that is consistent for most government organizations. I've looked at statistics for others, excepting like the National Park Service, who was just hitting it out of the park. Like, I go there for entertainment and they use humor.
Those memes.
They're so funny. I don't have a flying squirrel picture that I can post and talk about for Bradley County. So they're a good example, and they get their message across with humor and personality. And I'll see if I can rent a sense of humor somewhere and try to get better at that. But
That was pretty good.
But I'm talking with John Mortons more about, you know, what can we do to put the personality of the department really in the page and talk about what they do and celebrate those firefighters, put effort into recruitment. But I'm going to continue to fall back on this notion that our best efforts are spent in working with the media, getting news releases out, granting interviews, making it easier for them to do their job, because I don't have a radio station. We don't have that we can just turn on, but we do have interview time that they grant us in studio. We have that monthly interview at KSNT that we bring staff to. We have reporters who come out and cover the information, and just we put out a news release this week about the egg hunt, the Easter egg hunt that the health department is doing. It's the first time they're doing it. And Sunny 102 reached out and said, hey, we'd love to be your media partner. Can we go set up and do a live event there and then give you a bunch of free advertising beforehand? Like, I didn't know that happened. Absolutely. Yes, we know that. So that's what they're going to do. And because we're doing good work for the community, and I think because we're easy to work with, then we get those kind of opportunities just handed to us, which is amazing. But I'll continue with the social media. I'm not going to stop it. But every time I look at the numbers, I'm reminded that that's not our best, not the best return for us.
No hope for a TikTok, you know.
All right.
We can choreograph some things. Let's do it. Website's going well. I have big plans. I always have big plans. And this year it's going to happen. That we're going to get more training for the people who are authorized to make updates to the website, because we have more than 2,000 pages of content, and that I can't keep it updated. There's no way, even if I spent all day doing it, that I'm going to stay on top of keeping content updated. So empowering those people to do that. Popular pages this month, that STI spiked very dramatically. I looked into it. I thought, is this a bot? Is this something weird going on? We have an informational page under the health department's information about STI testing. And so I talked to them and said, are you getting more calls? Are people coming in more? And they said, actually, yes, kind of. And you look at what time of year it is, and spring break and take Patty's Day, maybe there really is interest in that. So I can use that information. We did put out several posts about, and you can come to the health department for free STI testing and reproductive health services, and using this to identify what's going on in the community and try to capitalize and connect people with resources. Search terms staying a lot the same. Marriage and divorce is going to always be on there. People have things going on. The name one, someone typed in a specific name about like 12 different times looking for something. And it wasn't a name I recognized, so I thought it was probably a mistake, and I didn't want to share that person's name in a public meeting. But that's about consistent with what we've seen. And again, looking at the numbers, website visits compared to social media hits. Yes, I should be spending more of my time on the website. There's more return for that. Highlights have a lot to do with fire, and Russell's not paying me to say this, but I really do appreciate the access that he's given me and the time and effort his staff spend to get information to me so I can get it to the public. They'll reach out to me proactively and say, hey, this is going on, and I'll get you information. I know the press wants something, and I'll follow up with you. And then we were able to put out just that news release this week, and we highlighted the fact that a citation was issued. And we got feedback from quite a few people saying, yes, finally, I'm glad something is happening. And then the public is aware, the news covered it. And as we're moving into like a period of very dangerous fire conditions, hopefully that kind of awareness is beneficial, and maybe somebody doesn't throw that cigarette out the window. That makes me crazy that people still do that, but they do. And more fires, pictures are so necessary. You can't tell us about a wildfire without wanting to know what did it look like, what happened. So again, great to have access to do that, because sure, I'm annoying to have in the truck. But
Quit shaking your head, Ms. Russell.
And then this is just a screenshot from our monthly visit to KSNT. They let us come in studio and for 10 minutes talk about anything we want to talk about. Which again, there's no way. I mean, we're not buying some whole commercial, so there's no way we would have money to make this happen. But through these good relationships, because of the good service that everyone is doing for the community, we have these kinds of opportunities given to us. Planning and development fees went up. We got news coverage about that. One kind of characterized it as we were warning citizens, which in essence we were informing them of a change. I guess you could call that a warning. We'll let that slide. Highway 177 wildfire, a lot of wildfires going on, and then got a lot of coverage for the new EMS station and several student requests as well. So we keep they keep coming back and talking to Dave, and people are interested in that Leonardville station. So we haven't even broken ground. Yes, and thank you for granting that. It's because Kansas is I'm talking more than I thought I was going to, but because Kansas is a smaller market, we often have people who are on their first job professionally who become our media representatives, and they cycle through pretty quickly. And I see us as having an opportunity to help train these folks and teach them better ways to do their job. And one way we do that is granting those student interviews as well, and giving them access to officials and staff so that they can kind of grow in their career. And it's good practice for us being on camera with low consequences. So I see it as a. And then there was one other thing I wanted to tell you. About the governor's public health conference. I was able to attend, and they invited me to speak and talk about building positive union relations. Everything I heard from the other panelists and the people in the audience, and that we're doing a good job. So thank you for everything and allowing me to be the public information officer. And I'm so much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk about it.
Well, that's the end of our regular business. Is there anything else? Any other comments?
I just wanted to once again say thanks for the invite and the opportunity to be here to see that very nice facility.
This is one of the first 4 meetings we'll be having in the smaller cities, and the next ones will be Leonardville, June 29th, Roundup, August 31st, and Ogden, October 30th. So this is a plan we had at the beginning of the year to reach out and take the commission on the road. So we appreciate you being here and this has been a great evening. Thank you.
I figured the former city commissioner here would have all kinds of comments tonight.
The other thing we're going there.
Yes.
He's on.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Well, I guess with that, then I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn the March 30th meeting of the Raleigh County Commission.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn the March 30th meeting of the Raleigh County Commissioners. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.